When my marriage was falling apart, I developed insomnia. Most nights I could fall asleep okay, but I would invariably wake up in the middle of the night and find myself staring at the ceiling. It got so bad that most days at work, I would leave the office at noon, go to my car, and take a 20-minute nap, just so I could get through the day. Eventually, things improved, my life improved, and my sleep improved as well. But this experience really taught me the value of sleep. Sleep is so important, it's vital. And because of this experience, I really invested a lot of energy in learning how to improve sleep. I've used these strategies to improve my life and those of my clients. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why you might have trouble sleeping, what the causes might be, and how you might address these causes through strategies and behavioral changes. Let's dive in. There are a myriad reasons why you might have trouble sleeping. I'm not going to be able to address everything here, but I do think one of the most important reasons is a rather modern phenomenon. So in this day and age, we are constantly overstimulated, but also understimulated. We're staring at screens all day, we're super busy and hyper engaged, but we're also bored and underutilized. And this leaves people with this feeling of being tired but wired. We're plugged in all the time, we never really shut off, but we also never really wind down. And I'm sure you understand this because you're watching this video right now, you're staring at a screen. Most people spend their whole day staring at a screen or chasing electronic signals from the supercomputer in our pocket. This is no way to live. This is not consistent with the majority of human existence. And so because of this, it can be so hard to just wind down and disconnect at the end of the day. You're plugged in all day. How can you just plug out? There is no unplugging. There is no disconnecting. And so it can be very hard to sleep. Secondly, you might be experiencing acute stress and anxiety like I described in the beginning of this video. This can be a really terrible experience because when you're very anxious and stressed, it can make your sleep worse. And that makes your anxiety and your stress worse. So it turns into this vicious cycle where you can't sleep and it makes you more stressed and that hurts your sleep and that makes you more stressed and it hurts your sleep and it makes you more stressed until you just kind of collapse. I know this all too well. I nearly collapsed when my marriage was falling apart. I understand this. This is a real phenomenon, and if left unaddressed, it can really ruin people's lives. Thirdly, for athletes, for bodybuilders, for gym goers, there are actually sports-specific reasons why your sleep might be negatively impacted. For example, training is a stressor. It can actually make your sleep worse. This is particularly true in two instances. One is acute. So, for example, you go to the gym and you do an incredibly difficult 10-rep max on the squats. After the set is done, you're shaking, your hands are shaking, you got a cold sweat going, you feel almost nauseous. You have an adrenaline response. Your body is essentially in shock, in panic mode. That is very likely to negatively impact your sleep that night because your body has experienced something tremendous and it's not just going to shut off immediately. Conversely, training can also have negative impacts on sleep in the long term because fatigue can accumulate. So maybe you're doing a 6 or an 8 or a 10 or a 12-week training cycle and it's just too much for you. And so you notice as the cycle persists, you get more and more fatigued and your sleep worsens. Additionally, athletes also suffer little aches and pains, little niggles, and these things can come up in the middle of the night and impact your sleep. So for example, sometimes my elbow hurts, and this can actually mess up my sleep because I'll toss and turn in the middle of the night, I'll put some pressure on my elbow unintentionally, and that will wake me up. I don't mean to do it, this isn't a conscious action, but it can actually make my sleep worse. And I think this impacts a lot of athletes without them really realizing it because this is the thing that happens in the middle of the night when they're not even totally aware of it. So now that we've identified some of the causes of sleeplessness, what can we do to remedy this? What strategies and tactics can we employ? There's so much to cover here that I'm just going to focus on what I think are the most effective strategies. So the most important thing you can do is make your bedroom as cool and dark and quiet as you possibly can. You want your bedroom to be like a cave. And so for me personally, I keep my bedroom at night in the low to mid 60s. I wear a sleep mask to cover my eyes, and I have a white noise machine to block out the noise from the street. If I could have my way, I'd live in a bunker underground. I just don't have that option, so I try to approximate that in my home as best I can. Additionally, keeping your room cool means you can wear blankets. And blankets are great because they'll help to weigh your body down. They'll keep you from tossing and turning as much in the night, and that will help to improve the quality of your sleep as well. Secondly, you need to adhere to a consistent bedtime and wake time. This is really important and particularly vital for people who work, because a lot of people who work do this thing where they catch up on their sleep during the weekend. I do the same thing, but this causes problems because if you sleep in on Saturday and sleep in on Sunday, when you try to go to bed on Sunday night, your sleep is going to be worse. And so you wake up on Monday groggy and tired, and this bleeds into the rest of the week. So you're always playing catch up, and then you get back to the weekend, you catch up, and then you do it again. But the real solution is just to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. Regardless of your job, regardless of school, if you can adhere to that schedule, it'll make your sleep so much better and so much more reliable. Thirdly, when you wake up, try to expose yourself to sunlight as soon as you can, and before you go to bed, expose yourself to some moonlight. This may sound hokey, this may sound silly, but we're trying to align our body's circadian rhythms. We're trying to connect with the earth. These systems, these patterns, these behaviors are ancient. Human beings were meant to be asleep when it was dark and awake when it was light. And you need to remind your body, you need to remind your brain chemistry that you are a human, that you exist in a world of light and dark that is bound by the sun and the moon. And so expose yourself to these stimuli and your body will behave and respond accordingly. Fourthly, and I alluded to this earlier in the video, you need to stay away from electronic devices, at least an hour before you go to bedtime. This is incredibly important and really hard to do. I make this mistake all the time where I'll be texting someone 10 or 20 minutes before I go to bed, and it'll ruin my sleep because my brain is primed to think that something is coming, right? I'm expecting a message. I'm expecting something fun and exciting, and so my brain is still turned on. It doesn't want to go to bed. It wants to see this new, fun, exciting game. And so you have to create some distance between your phone and your bed, between the time for sleep and the time for games. I would say at a minimum, you probably don't want to look at your phone for at least an hour before bed, but more is better. Lastly, if possible, you need to develop some kind of a practice of mindfulness. This doesn't have to mean meditation or journaling. This is really about understanding and connecting with your feelings. A lot of the time when we're feeling stress, when we're feeling negative emotions, we get caught up in it. We get caught up in telling stories about our negativity. For me, I'm someone who can feel anger very strongly. And what I will do is I will sort of press the anger button in my brain again and again and again. I'll think of the thing that makes me angry, and then I'll think of the thing that makes me angry, and then I'll think of the thing that makes me angry. That's what I'll do. I'll sit in my head and I'll brood. But if I can practice some amount of mindfulness, I can recognize that I'm doing this, that I'm trapped in this loop, and I can break that cycle. The important thing to recognize is that negative emotions, whether they be sadness, anger, anxiety, etc., though they are important, they're just signals from the body. They're no more or less important than any other signal you may receive, and you don't have to act upon them. You can't stop the feelings. I'm not advocating for suppression. I'm not advocating you bury those feelings deep down, but you do have agency. You as a person can choose to act however you want based upon your interpretations of the signals you are receiving. And so you don't have to brood, you don't have to obsess, you don't have to delve into your anxiety. You can hear your feelings, you can acknowledge them and move on. I want to be clear, I'm not trying to downplay things like clinical depression or anxiety. I'm just talking about this as a more general phenomenon. Thanks so much for watching. Sleep is incredibly valuable. If your sleep is poor, it'll negatively impact the gym, your job, and your life. So if you found this video useful, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate you.